Hello, I'm Andre J, and today I'm here to talk to you about WavePool DSK, free desktop software for Windows and OS X that has been designed by me. A port of the beloved VSERPI hardware synth WavePool. Um, just get this out of the way right here. If you are a user and are familiar with the VSERPI wave pool, this tutorial will basically give you zero new information. Like 2% of this video may be something helpful, but the rest is all just kind of like this video is intended for the hundreds or possibly thousands of people who are just finding out about this right now because instead of being a hardware separate piece of hardware, this is now free publicly distributed software for anyone to download and use. So this video is for you people. You people. That's literally the one thing you should never say when you're doing any kind of public speaking is you people. Uh so this is for you people who who are just finding out about this for the first time and want to know what the heck is going on here. So without further ado, let's find out what the heck is going on here. First, you can see that I did some messing around with this to start with. So if I want to reset everything, I hit this button. It says reset everything. And now we have what more or less you should see when you pop up with this is some kind of video input coming in through here without really anything crazy going on here. Um, and you see this GUI over here. The GUI, you can change the different sizes of the text right here, depending on if you've got some kind of retina display or something, or if you're working on a really tiny screen with a low resolution, maybe you want to be at 100%, but that's what this is for. Up here, you can see it's got a little thing that's calculating the frame rate. The goal is to make sure to keep it around 30. It might slow down depending on if you have a lot of other graphics programs running on your computer. It will definitely slow down if you do things like move the window around. You can see frame rate goes down. That is a known thing. Also, if you move the window around, you can see until I stop moving the window around, the video freezes up. And the same thing will happen if I move the GUI around. So just be aware of that. These things are facts. They are not something that needs to be reported as bugs. If you want to full screen it, you can hit this toggle, but whoops, I full screened it on the same thing that my what do you call it? My GUI is on, so I'll have to hit the F button and that'll make it go back out. And you can see I'm recording this on OBS right now. It didn't really seem to want to record it when it went full screen. Interesting fun fact. Just keep that in mind. If you're recording in OBS, maybe don't record in full screen mode. So down here, you see you can select a MIDI input. I only have one MIDI thing connected right now, Nano Control 2, that has been flashed with the VSERPI scene setting. So the MIDI learn, there is no MIDI learn on here. This is just like set to like fixed CCs. Go to my website that's linked in the bottom to find out more about how to customize your controller. Best one to use is this because it has all the knobs on it. And you can just flash the scene setting that you can download from my website. Otherwise, you just have to reprogram whatever MIDI controller or MIDI source you have to use the CCs that are default for this. Um, if you unplug or plug in a new MIDI controller and you don't see it on this list, hit the reset MIDI devices and maybe something new will come up. You can see if I unplug this, it won't go away right away. I reset it, it's gone away. And when we plug it back in, and it's back. And you also have to hit this button in order to change it. If you don't see it right here, you haven't actually changed it. So you have to select it and then hit another button to change it. Same thing with the video input. You can see there's a whole bunch of different video things set up here. Basically, we could change to the other camera I've got on my system. Hi, this is another camera. And then we change it back to the one that I'm using right now. Hi, we're back to this camera. So that's how you change video inputs. This is compatible with all UVC video devices. And you can see I've got a heck ton of virtual cam softwares on here. NDI, Webcam, AlterCam, FineShare, E2Soft, WeCam, Streamlabs, OBS. OBS virtual camera does not work terribly well with this. Deal with it. It's not really something that's supported, and I'm not really going to go out of my way to change anything to support it with this version of WavePool DSK, the free version here. So yeah, some people got a little spicy with me about that, and let me just like put it down. Just not going to happen. Just deal with it and move on. You can see how many other virtual cam softwares on here I'm using, and I use OBS to record too, so I'm not going to use OBS to send things out to this. So, such is life. We hit this button, which puts the logo on. That's just fun. I'll show you what more fun things you can do with that later. And then over here we have hints. Hints, if hints is on and you hover over certain things, you'll see little tips pop up. It doesn't show up for everything. Just things that I thought might you need a little extra explaining. So hints is good to have on when you're first getting started. MIDI GUI. So I have a MIDI controller here, and I'm pressing the knobs, and I say, oh, nothing's working here. And then I hit this button, and I see, oh, something's working here. So you have to make sure this button is hit is checked and active in order to use this. Reset, of course. This will just reset this page right here. And then clear frame buffers. We just fill up a frame buffer here. So frame buffer, the long and short of it is a frame buffer just saves a frame of video, and this frame buffer in particular is in a feedback mode, so it's just going to keep layering and layering all the video that goes on it. And we've got this is video delay, so if I set this up to 60, we've got like 2 seconds of video that'll get looped in here, and sometimes I'm like, wow, this is way too much. This is way too much video. Way too much. This is getting way too much over here. It's getting really confusing. I don't really know what's going on here. And then I want to hit this button, clear frame buffers. And then we're starting to get a little bit of things back going on here. And now I can understand what's happening here. All right. Let's hit reset. So another thing that you might notice is that if you have MIDI GUI set up and you try to mess around with these things, you'll kind of jerk things over, but you won't be able to do anything. So basically, if the MIDI GUI is on, then you can pretty much like only use the controller. If you turn it off, then everything can just kind of stay where it is. You can use the mouse. You can also use the keyboard. I'm using the arrows right now, and then I hit the space bar, and I use the arrows to turn Luma key up and down. If I want to enter a number in here, I hit enter, and then I just put 1, and then that is turned up. I enter in here then, and I put 0.5, and then that goes up like that. So you can use arrows, pretty much arrows, spacebar, tab will kind of like jump around a little bit faster than that, and it'll jump around to things being kind of active too. Uh, so those are the different ways to control it. Depending on where I'm at, I prefer on a computer, half the time I prefer just using the keyboard myself. I'm not a big mouse person. I think keyboard is much, much faster and more ergonomic than a mouse. But in different settings, if I had things set up just right, then I'd want to only use the MIDI controller. So those are the three options for controlling things. And then two final things. You'll see there's different tabs up here. Main parameters, video active parameters, and more. More just has a bunch of information. There's a couple more hints in here. Video active parameters we'll get to later. and you go down here and there's some buttons. These will go into more detail later, and you can register online to access bonus presets. So basically, you go to the website, the same website you downloaded this from, and you just send an email to the email address provided, and you will get automatically a registration code, and you get a couple of bonus presets that are packaged in here. And yeah, I think maybe we'll cover those at the end of this video, or maybe we won't. I'm not working with a script, so we're just gonna do what we do here. Okie dokie. So let's look at the parameters. So go and reset everything back again. I'll actually keep the mouse up here for this so I can show you more clearly what's happening. I think that'll be a better what do they call it? Pedagogical device. I don't think I'm pronouncing that right. Pedagogy. It will be a better pedagogical device to have the mouse active here. So, LumaKey. So this is what WavePool is in a nutshell. Is it is mixing one live video feed with delayed and mutated copies of itself. So this is basically like a guitar pedal, that guitar delay pedal, but for video. Cool thing about video delay is that if you turn up the gain on video delay, it makes really cool, crazy patterns instead of breaking your speakers. People used to think that video feedback would hurt your TV. I've heard this verbally from many different sources. And by video feedback, I mean video feedback is what happens. You've probably seen something like this before in your life. If you've done like some kind of like a Zoom call and you screen shared and it was the same screen that your Zoom call was on, and then you get this Hall of Infinite Mirrors thing, something like this. You may have also seen it if you point a camera at a screen while the camera is transmitting video. That is what video feedback is. And basically, I'm not going to go into a lot of detail what video feedback is because you can watch one of the other 500 videos, which I made where I go into way too much detail about it. Needless to say, it's cool and it's fun. Um, so we need to be able to mix this live video feed with the feedback video, and that's what LumaKey and Mix are for. Mix obviously just kind of does like a linear fade between the feedback. If you do it and you've only got like one frame behind, then you just kind of get this sort of like wishy-washy like trails effect. If we add some more delay in here, then you get this kind of thing, which looks like like a 60s acid freakout scene from a movie. Uh, and you go all the way up and you've got basically you get like sort of like smooth trails, kind of stuttering trails for the first couple of frames. And then you start to see definitely distinct echoes around like 8 frames. And then you get very kind of, let me turn that back. You get very distinct echoes when you go up to 59. This is actually 60. I did the math a little wrong here. I think, well, yeah, delay in frames, that's wrong. That should be 1 frame. This should be 60. Uh, I do have a degree in mathematics, but that's from like 15 years ago, so apparently I don't need to know arithmetic anymore. Mix. So mix, if you go between 0 and 0.5 on here, it'll behave pretty much like you think. And if you go to exactly 0.5, which is much easier to do if you use enter and just like plug it in there. You see that there is no input video whatsoever. This is all feedback right now, and it's just totally fed back. And if we go a little bit above 5, we can see that it's grabbing some information from the camera. but it's not really clear exactly how it's doing it. It's very, very distorted. And similarly, if we do negative values of mix, we get this weird kind of like crazy strobing, kind of looks a little bit like difference mixing. Not quite, but close enough. You can think of positive as being like an additive mix, negative as being like a difference mix. It's not actually what's going on, but close enough for horseshoes and hand grenades. So that is mix. The other way we can blend, try to mix our feedback with the input video is Luma key. So Luma key, basically, if you go from 0 on up, you can see that the darkest parts of this video are getting replaced with the feedback stuff. And as I go all the way up, we can get to pretty much all the way, and you go up to like about as high as you can get, and it's just going to be like the brightest part on my shiny, well-oiled forehead here. It's going to be the only thing that appears in the video still. Maybe the reflection on that CRT? Nope, we got it all. And of course, one will Luma key out all of the video. Here is something which is slightly different from the VSERPI wave pool. If you do negative values here, it'll start to key in from the brightest to the darkest. You can see my shiny dome is the first part to go, and then as we kind of like keep going out like that, we get more and more feedback until all the way here. So Luma key negative values starts from the lightest part, Luma key positive values starts from the darkest. That is Luma key. And we'll keep this right about like 50% here going forward. Or even more, actually. Let me reset this one. That's a little too confusing. Simplest way to reset things is just use the enter button and hit 0. Because it can be, it's not impossible to try to do it by the mouse, but it's going to be hard. If we use this hue, we can see that we start to like get hue cycling going on. Negative values, you'll notice things kind of clamp out at red. And then positive values, once we've clamped out at red, nothing is going to happen here. But if I go Luma key back down and back up again, then we see that it traps this interesting crispy digital hue cycling here. If we want to see things happening a little bit slower, let's turn that up to like 18 frames here. And then let's see basically a hue, what it does to each single like echo of the frame. It's adding more and more hue attenuation. And my mouth looks pretty sick. My whole face looks sick because those had more color. And you can see that things that didn't have a ton of color to begin with, like the TVs, they're not really getting anything. So maybe we want to figure out some way to get more hue cycling going on. So let's try turning up saturation. We crank that up all the way. We get not just like a super saturated copy of what was going on, but it's getting way oversaturated, and it makes everything look darker. Heavily saturated things are feel darker, and the sort of processing that's going on under the hood here, because everything is sort of like our interface is showing us, you know, hue, saturation, and brightness, but because this is digital, everything has to be converted into RGB values to be stored and to be put out on the screen. So basically, the process of going from a very high saturated thing, if you crank up the saturation, it's going to make things darker, more or less. You can bring down saturation and say, I only want to have black and white feedback, and we're going to lose all that saturation value. Although an interesting thing, if you crank it back up from 0, we'll get some. We won't necessarily get it all back in. So saturation can bounce back. And, well, it's getting pretty dark. It's getting a little too dark for me. Let's try brightening it up, and let's use this bright right here. And now if we just crank everything up here, we're going to get some hideous clown vomit in a quick second here. Let's bring this all the way down and just see what happens if we just kind of go whoop. Yeah. So you can see it's holding a little bit of the echo of like what the original footage was like. If we do it really slowly, then you'll get a little bit more time here. And if I do, let's do a full 30 frames, 1 second delay here. And let me slowly pull Luma key up. And you see it's sort of like you can see sort of like the layers of everything happening. So reset everything here. Let's try just some really tiny offsets here. Feedback is very sensitive. Feedback, video feedback, two-dimensional feedback is a non-linear process, meaning very, very, very small changes in values can have very, very, very drastic effects in the outcomes. Uh, so I'm showing you things cranked up and they get kind of noisy and grungy. The best thing to do if you're trying to figure out more stuff on your own is change very small things. Don't change a lot. So you can see we get something more subtle and interesting happening here. However, this is all kind of pretty static. Oh no, we got a clamp out here. Oh, now it's coming back. Oh, and then you get some clamp out. Maybe we want to do a little bit of, what if we hit this X button here? X displace. We're gonna move the X over. Wow, that's interesting. We got some more stuff going on here. If we do this hue offset, then we see some interesting hue cycling patterns. Anyone who's ever played with video mixer feedback before, you'll recognize this as being basically the canonical video mixer, patch the output back into the input feedback style for anything basically pre-SDI era video mixers. Um, so this is sort of your one stop to like getting some classic video mixer analog. I say analog. It's all it's all frame buffer feedback. There's an analog output going into the input, but it's a digital frame buffer that's holding the data and how the feedback is actually working. So you can see that it's pulling input video, and then because I am only changing things a little bit, it takes like just like a couple of frames of getting reprocessed for my hand to then morph into these crazy colors. And that's moving this X a little bit, and I move Y a little bit, and we get some more of the same thing. So very, very tiny changes. We'll get stuff that kind of looks like pretty classic reaction diffusion. I'm getting a little less saturation, so let me pump that up. I want to add some more hue in here and get some more cool blobs. Now we got a lot of cool blobs. And I pull this out and I say, wow, that's really cool. That's going off in an interesting way. But if you want to do sort of like no input video feedback stuff, I've got a problem because either you got to be really, really quick on the whoa on that stuff, or you're just gonna have to keep pulling in more and more of this input stuff. So let's find out how we can do something about that problem next to do more no input feedback stuff. So how do we get things moving again? If you keep seeing me doing this hand thing, I'm trying to get the camera to focus on me again. I'll do some negative, a little bit of negative product placement here and say Logitech HD 1080p cameras, your autofocus sucks. If you fix that on them and send me one, I'll mention that in a video. Getting sponsored by Logitech. That's never going to happen. So we want to make the feedback go on for forever and not just go away. A couple of ways you can do that. The most important thing to start with is down here where it says Geo Overflow. You can select toroid mode, and then you can see that the feedback just kind of like goes off of one side of the screen and comes up on the other, just like Pac-Man. And we can move around the geometry things, use all the controls like they normally do, and we get just like constantly oscillating feedback stuff. Pretty fun things. You can see as we can mess around with the hue here, do some interesting stuff. Uh, we can still lose the feedback though if I go bright down all the way. We've lost it, but I moved it back up just in time, and then I moved it down, move it back up. Ah, we lost it completely. So those are the two things about keeping feedback moving all the time is this toroid overflow and making sure you don't lose the brightness too much. There's other ways to lose brightness. If I go over here and I use this sharpen function here, we can see that the sharper things get, the more dark they are. So you have to kind of offset the amounts there with that. And this kind of keeps going up the more you sharpen things. Sharpen will affect other parameters. You can see that we've kind of lost most of the color. If I want to try to get a little bit of color back, maybe I try saturation invert or hue invert. And you can see we've got a little bit more color going on here. Sharpen will also turn things from being kind of like smooth and continuous to being jagged and discontinuous. Sharpening basically increases. Sharpening is a high pass filter on a two-dimensional image. High pass meaning that so a low frequency image is one that is very blurred out, very blobby. And a high frequency image has a lot of changes from brightness to darkness in it. So if we remove low frequency information and attenuate the high frequency information, we get more of these distinct patterns happening. And the patterns will change depending on what kind of displacement we're using. Other things you can use to change these kind of patterns is using this temporal filter. So temporal filter, if we turn this hints on and look at temporal filter, see a temporal filter blends with the previous frame. So that smooths things out. As we turn up the temporal filter, we can see it removes some of the discontinuities, slows down the apparent motion of the feedback, and at a certain point, it just kind of freezes and we get this kind of like video paint mode. So a temporal filter you can use to slow things down, smooth things out, um, and that's in a positive direction. We have temporal filter Q here. I'm using this sort of this analogy between like an analog, yeah, between like old school synthesizer analog filters where the British designers would use Q instead of resonance. I chose Q because it has less letters than resonance for the label here. What Q does in this is boosts the saturation and brightness. So from my perspective, that's close enough to resonance. It's attenuating certain bands of the frequencies. And as we turn this up and we have Q turned all the way up, you can see it's a lot more bright and saturated than if we did it otherwise. Less bright, less saturated. We can also make the temporal filter go negative. So as we do it more and more negative, we get more and more jagged. So this has the effect of sort of being like another high pass filter, but different in that it offers a different set of distortions. Basically, you get this kind of thing. It looks a lot like the kind of ringing feedback things you see on like a lot of analog glitch video devices. It makes all the video a little bit shakier and strobier. Um, if you have temporal filter negative and turn up the delay time, it will get very unpleasantly stroby. This is a fact. Otherwise, you can change a lot of other things while you have temporal filter jacked up and get some pretty interesting things. So relationships between brightness and the color values will change a lot with this positive and negative temporal filter values. You can see it gets strobier and strobier the negativier it gets. Different combinations of mix with temporal filter will do some pretty cool stuff. So that is temporal filter in a nutshell. So we've covered sharpen, we've done X and Y. Z zooms, and let's turn toroid off for a moment here. So Z will zoom in and out the feedback. You get this very dramatic sort of parallax scaling thing happening here. You get a very strong sense of movement coming in and coming out, coming in, coming out. Whee! Um, this can be fun to use with extremely slow delays. If we luma key like that, and then I zoom way in, ew, that's my weird crusty lips getting closer and closer. And we turn up the bright so we can kind of see, like, amplify these distortions here. Wow, that's pretty grungy. And we turn delay time all the way back down, and it'll just kind of do this weird. Basically, it's zooming in like 1 pixel. We're not really getting anything else interesting happening here until we turn toroid back on, and then give another seed here. You can see if we've got toroid turned on and we zoom out, it's going to grab like information from the corners and kind of repeat it. So we get this sort of like very, very psychedelic kind of scenery here with toroid turned on. You can also see we've got something called mirror turned on. See what happens if we do mirror with this. Looks almost the same. Mirror is going to look very different, the most different, if we start rotating things. So rotations will give a different kind of feedback pattern as well. If we have nothing on, then we just get this kind of like stellated pattern thing happening here. Get things maybe a little bit more subtle happening here. Okay. So rotation, we get this kind of like stellated feedback pattern starting happening here. The different overflow modes, if we turn toroid on, you'll see it'll start to populate with these like interesting echoes of everything, sort of grabbing stuff from the corners and just repeating it. So I'm just kind of like moving my hands around. You can see it's just the brightest part of my forehead, my well-oiled shiny dome, um, getting repeated there. And turn mirror on, clear the frame buffer. And see mirror is going to give you these different kind of like almost paisley-ish patterns happening on the corners here. So toroid and mirror, when you're doing the rotate, have very large differences. Other places that toroid and mirror have a difference, oh, come on, you can focus. Logitech, HD 1080p, really bad autofocus. Uh, just key most everything out here. And as we go off to the side here, mirror doesn't really change anything there. It seemed to change something on the Y. Well, that's an interesting glitch. Um, you can see at the top, we're getting some interesting patterns there. You need to have something basically happening in the area where you're starting to mirror from before it'll mirror on over. Uh, if we do this bright invert too and slow this down a little bit, then we'll start to see more of these kind of like interesting mirroring artifact things happening. We start to move around the X. You can see it's sort of dragging and repeating patterns from that side of the screen. We move around the Y. We don't really have too many interesting patterns to go from there. And when you mirror, you can kind of, when you're mirroring in this bright invert mode, you can kind of like lose the script pretty quickly if you're not careful. Let's see if we zoom out, we get just kind of repeated things, and then we start to rotate, and then we're going to get more and more of these pretty crazy psychedelic patterns happening. Slow it down even more. 10 frames. How slow can you go? And if I then turn up the temporal filter, it's kind of a little stroby. I want things to get a little bit sharper here. There we go. Now we have some more distinct things happening here. It's not quite stuttering quite as much. Let's turn up sharpen a little bit. Maybe this will give us some more texture. And bring in some of this, and bring that back out. And there we go. Now we have these crazy psychedelic rug pack patterns happening everywhere. And you can see an echo of me getting flushed down the feedback toilet, swirling down into infinity. So that's some mirror mode stuff here. That's also, let's talk about bright invert for a little bit. Bright invert, you can see if we don't do anything else with the geometry, it can be pretty obnoxious. If we zoom out a little bit, then we get that interesting kind of like hall of mirrors thing going on here. That's pretty fun. If we, you notice that it kind of goes out to gray at a certain point. If we turn the bright all the way up, then we don't go to gray. Let's leave temporal filter off for a second here. We've got these little buttons here for horizontal mirror and vertical mirror. Didn't seem to do anything yet, but what if I try rotating? Ooh, interesting. We've got some symmetry happening here. We start to zoom in and out. Cool thing that you can notice here is if I turn the delay time up to maybe like 8 frames, that's kind of my sweet spot for like starting to see echoes. And I do something like just zoom in here. You can see if I zoom out and then I zoom back in, it's going to kind of like hold a little bit of that movement and kind of keep moving after I have stopped moving the parameter. We go like that, and it's going to kind of keep going like that until at a certain point we're going to clamp out. It gets all the way up there. So slow delays can allow you your like whatever sort of like action you're doing, moving around the geometry to sort of keep resonating, keep echoing through the various delays. And you can do really slow things and kind of keep things moving, or you can do really fast things and get like that kind of stuff frozen in there. So that's some fun things you can do with horizontal mirroring. If we do the vertical mirrors, then of course we get even more psychedelia happening here. Out a bit. That's pretty fun. A lot of nice patterns you can get in there. Do saturation invert. It's kind of pretty much always going to start with red if we don't have any other information to feed into it. Saturation invert does pretty much what you'd expect. Where there's zero saturation, it turns it all the way up. Uh, Change the hue up a bit. It's not really loud enough to really like make this hue isn't loud enough to like make any big changes here. So maybe I need to do something and play around with these hue X controls here. So basically, if you're only messing around with hue, saturation, and brightness, you can find there's a pretty limited kinds of different hue cycling patterns you can get, which is why I added these extra hue controls here so you can get more complex patterns in the hue space. So offset in many modes will just kind of like add like a matte. When you've got like a matte color, here's a glitch. It's bringing in some of my video information here. Um, I know about this glitch. Still working on it. I'll figure it out someday. It's totally just my fault, the way I program things. But it's kind of a fun glitch. This is a little teaser for what video reactive mode is like here. But hue offset, you can see we're getting different base hues to start with. And I do this hue X LFO thing. And let's see, we're going to start to get more of this grungy hue information in there. And then we do hue X mod, turn the delay time way up. Whoa. And let's try another couple of things with these hue thingies. So let's do toroid on, luma key up. Let's go over to the side here and put hue offset on. So here we're starting to get this pretty classic, like even more classic, like RGB values clamping on an RGB and a hue cycle situation. There's a little bit more than just RGB happening if I move around really quickly, but they're kind of strobing a little bit back and forth. Bring that down, then it kind of smooths things out. So here's your super crazy rainbow mode. Hue XLFO is sort of like a wave shaper. And then the Hue X mod kind of adds just more distortion to it. I'll be frank with you, when I added these back into here, they're kind of doing different stuff than they did on the VSERPI one. And I think it has a lot to do with different sort of under the hood properties of the shaders. This is in GL3 and the VSERPI one is written in ESGL like 3.2 or something. some under the hood things that I wasn't quite able to replicate the same way. Basically, they don't work quite the same, but I kept them in because I didn't really want to have to try to figure out something else to do with that part of the control schemes. So that's pretty much what we got there. So more or less, this is explaining everything on this first page of the screen here. And I guess the only other things we have to talk about is video reactive mode. All right, video reactive mode. There we go. Sure, focused again. So, first off, we're going to want to Luma key a bunch of stuff out to start with, because video reactive mode only affects the video feedback. So, video active mode is a way of using this video, your input video right here, to affect the brightness values in this video here. So, clearly my dome and the reflections on this CRT here are going to be the most distinct, and probably my shoulder right here. This is the brightest values I see here to affect the parameters of the feedback. So a simple way to see what's going on here is do this X displace. We can see if I go back over here and I Luma key everything out, it's displacing things based upon how bright stuff is. If I'm moving my very shiny dome around, we get different kinds of displacement happening. Um, Let me turn this toroid on so we get things moving a little bit more. We can say that this sort of adds on to whatever stuff we do over here. So if I turn this up, the X displace in the other direction here, then we're going to see it kind of like, it's like fighting back and forth. And I'm moving my arms around, I'm moving my head around. You can kind of see these things. So this is just basically a way because if you played with any other of my stuffs, like the old school Video Wave software, no longer supported, or Gravity Waves, I like putting a million LFOs into everything. And having video reactive mode is kind of a way of having some sort of like modulation happening in the feedback that doesn't directly need some kind of one-dimensional LFO, but instead relies on two-dimensional video information to modulate things. So you can do some pretty fun stuff here. Let's do Y that way and then Y this way. Get some pretty weird things going on here. You can also do Z, zoom in based upon how bright something is. And bring that one down. Ooh, that's pretty weird. Turn that off and get this kind of like very strange environment here. Um, Video reactive sharpen. Of course, you're going to have to add some brightness back in to offset that. We can do video reactive hue stuff. So if we reset everything, here's a pretty fun trick. Oh, we got to reset that too. Hit reset everything to reset everything. So Luma key everything out here. Let's turn up sat a little bit, turn up bright a little bit, and then video reactive hue. It's kind of outlining me where I'm at right now. You can see me moving around. If we do hue X offset there, then we get this kind of like interesting like neon predator mode here happening. We can do more complex things by video reactive mixing. Video reactive luma keying, kind of a bad idea, but I guess I left it in there, so maybe there's something cool someone can figure out to do with that. Um, So yeah, I think that's basically the long and short of working with Gravity Waves DSK. This should be all you would really need to know to get started with this. If you like, no, as I say, Gravity Waves, that brings me to a different kind of promotion here. If you like WavePool DSK, maybe you should check out some of the other things I make. Gravity Waves DSK, which is like this, but times 1,000. And also offers you like stuff like presets, like a giant preset thing, and like much more control over like input, output, and processing resolutions. And dual video delay lines instead of just one, and like some crazy like mixing stuff that this doesn't have. Or you might just like this a lot and you want to buy a hardware WavePool. You can buy from the link down below in the description. Or you can just follow the instructions, which are also in a link below in the description on how to build your own. If you build your own and you think that it's still a cool enough thing that you'd like to somehow give me money, you can sign up for my Patreon. I offer nothing for my Patreon. Sometimes there are very infrequent rewards that people get that I don't like tell anyone about until they happen to try to prevent like hit and run people. And having support from the Patreon is something that helps me continue developing software like this. If I got one thing I'm offering right now is that I'm going to be making a pro version of this, which does have presets, customizable resolution, extra effects, and all kinds of stuff like that. Sometime by the end of 2025. If my Patreon got above a certain amount, you can see that information if you go to my Patreon and look below. I would make that free instead of paid software. So basically, if a lot of people support my Patreon, I will just make free software that everyone can have instead of making paid software that only people who pay for it can have. So I guess that is something the Patreon can offer. It helps subsidize that sort of stuff, and like generally like me making like explainer videos and stuff like this, which even a video like this, which is very like haphazard, ramshackle, and very poorly edited, still takes a lot of time and energy to make and to provide for you. um, what else can you do? You can also sign up for my Ko-Fi sticker club, where you give me some money every month and I just send you a cool sticker I design, which is an alternative to the Patreon. If you're someone who likes to get things on a regular basis, my stickers are really cool. Here's one right here. That's from like May or something. So it's basically stuff based off of my video art stuff that I then do some graphic design on. And you can also sign up for double extra special sticker and print club, where every other month you get a sticker every month, and then every other month I send you an 8.5 by 11 matte art print of something I have made too. So those are other ways to support my development. Third way is you just don't have to, and probably I'll keep making stuff anyway, but I'll make it a lot faster and better if I have more financial support, because the world that we live in is one in which financial access to financial resources basically allows you to do just about everything else in life. And that is a fact. If you can name all of the facts, email me all of the facts that I have said in this video. I will send you some sort of a free prize. I think I've offered this in another video before. A secret is that the free prize is just going to be like some kind of weird and amusing image that I found and saved in a folder on my pictures folder that is labeled just for fun. So, I believe that is about it. Just kind of having fun posing here. Here's some positive product placement. Schweppes, sparkling seltzer water, black cherry, refreshing, cool patterns for feedback. Works much better than the Logitech 1080p HD USB camera Logitech. Get on it. I will. I'll shout out Logitech positively in every one of my future videos if Logitech sends me just one nice USB camera. uh, yeah, I guess that's it. I could also try to get a sponsorship from Korg. Korg, These things are pretty cool. Um, the reason you sell a lot of these is probably has a lot to do with the fact that I've been promoting them as the best possible MIDI controllers that like video artists can use. So yeah, Korg, you should also sponsor me as well, and or just hire me as a consultant to make like updated video synthesizers. Korg used to make a cool video synthesizer series. One was similar to the WavePool. I forget exactly what it's called. The Korg Captivator was a sampler. Oh yeah, it was like a chaos pad, video chaos pad. You could use a video chaos pad to like delay video. Kind of cool, kind of lame because it was also like downscaled to like 240p. Pretty grungy stuff, but like I mean for like 1995 that was basically insane. It was a video delay pedal that you control with an XY thing. Pretty flippin' awesome. Uh yeah, so Korg, if you ever want to get back into making video stuff, you could do a lot worse than hire me. Like, I don't really know who else out there is like in the business doing like digital video synthesis design who like you could hire. Maybe like Kevin or Olivia or something. Or oh yeah, Ron. You'd probably actually hire Ron from Sleepy Circuits first. I think he's much better than I am doing this kind of stuff. A lot more professional too. Shout out to Ron and the new Hypno too. Check that shit out. That looks pretty dope. Um, yeah, usually at the end of these, I just kind of like ramble a little bit. If this is your first one of the videos of mine that you've seen, I guess, yeah, you've got a lot more videos to watch now. Welcome to my giant fucking YouTube page. I have actually removed tons of videos too. So the fact that there's still so many up just says like I guess I've been like a YouTuber for a while. Although I'm really not much of a YouTuber, in the grand scheme of YouTubers. In fact, there's a very good chance I'll just not make another video after this one for like 6 months. So yeah, I guess that's it for now. As always, have fun. Other people say write things in the comments. I'll be blunt. I read comments on my YouTube videos about once a year. So you're not going to get at me personally with any information, but other people might respond. Happens pretty often. Uh, yeah, I guess that's about it. We can call this a video. Let me just fade out on like me sort of like rambling and stuttering into the camera.